Hey everybody, Fishman here. Welcome to another video. I had so many wonderful comments on the acrylic planter pot video I had just put up that I thought I would put a couple of them together for you. And I also want to show you that you don't necessarily need to make it elaborate. You can actually use almost any kind of material at all, and that's what those pipes on the right are for. That's PVC, ABS, and of course acrylic. But you don't even need to use those. Any sort of straight cylindrical object would work perfectly fine. You can take a pop bottle and cut the bottom off of it and use that as well. And the one on the left here is going to be a little bit more elaborate. It is going to be an in-tank plant filter. And I could also have just used that bottle instead. I could have just drilled a few holes on the bottom, put another hole near the top, and of course a little one in the lid like I did for the Bryan Shrimp Hatchery, and run some air through it, and it would work perfectly fine as well. But I thought I'd make one a little bit more elaborate, and I'm going to make one that's quite simple, and hopefully between the two you guys will get an idea of roughly the kind of thing that you can do with this. The simpler of the two actually is really quite straightforward to put together, and you don't really need any special tools for it. All you need is a method for cutting the acrylic, and then a handheld drill to put a couple holes in it like this, and then this is going to get welded on top here, and that's pretty much all there is to this. The smaller hole is for the rigid airline tubing to go down, which will bubble some air up through there and supply a little bit of current through this. And then the larger hole, of course, is where you'll put whatever plant you want to root, like pothos, aluminum plant, bamboo, whatever you want, and that is all there is to that. So this is going to get welded on, and I deliberately did not put this on the lathe and finish up the edge really nicely, because I just wanted to show you a comparison between the two. And I do it because, you know, I need it to, well, I just want it to look nicer, and it is not necessary. So that little piece on the left is just going to be a bracket to hold it in place on the tank. And then there you go. That is done, except of course there's an outflow hole I have to put on later. This one's going to be a little bit more elaborate, but it is actually going to be a lot simpler than an out-of-tank version for this. I have been meaning to put together a freshwater algae scrubber, and in this particular case what I want to do, instead of using algae, I want to use a fast-growing plant, and I do plan on building one that is going to be like sitting outside an aquarium that water will just be pumped to and needs to be cleaned, a lot like the actual saltwater version that I put together. But this is going to be a much simpler version, and it is going to be my sort of test run to see how these things work, and also it'll help me gauge what kind of shape and size to make the much more elaborate one. So this is a very simple chamber. It's going to be welded in place here like the other one. The holes at the bottom are where the water is going to come in. There is going to be a spot that's going to be welded on top later on, where I'm going to have a rigid airline that's going to go in this. And then the ring that fits on the outside has been made that way because I want the top part of this to be as open as possible, so that I can get in here and like prune the plants that are going to be in this. Because algae filters or plant filters or whatever you want to call them, they don't actually remove anything from the water until you actually remove some material from the water. The plants will absorb nutrients, they will grow, and then if you just leave them in there and then they start to die off, all those nutrients will end up back in the aquarium. So here you go. This is the difference between using the lathe. On the one on the right, smooth, and the one on the left, you can see it's a bit rougher, a bit gummier, and there's a gap or two. It doesn't really matter in this particular case because it is something that's in the aquarium, but as the reason why I like to use the lathe, it does make the joint look a little nicer. Looking at this filter now and remembering the bottle from the beginning of the video, you can see how easy it would be to take that bottle and drill a few holes in the bottom, and then drill a few holes in the side as well where roughly you think the water level is going to be, and you'd have pretty much what this is here in function anyway. And this filter actually is also, like I said, very easy to put together, and it's actually almost done. All I need to do now is finish this bracket, and I'm putting a little extra 1/4 inch trim on one part of it here, just so when it sits in the aquarium, it's just going to sit up a little bit more vertically instead of sliding over. And then if you look to the left, that is going to be the bracket that's going to go across the top of this, and that hole, of course, is where the rigid airline tubing is going to go in. And then, like I said, that's pretty much all there is to this. It's very straightforward, easy build. Like I said, a lot simpler than the one I'm going to put together later on, depending on how this goes, of course, when I'm going to do the out-of-tank version. I like planter filters, and I like algae scrubbers. Not so much for marine, but I do like them for freshwater. So I'm going to see how this does. I'm going to put it on an aquarium, put some hornwort in it, because that's going to be my plant of choice at the moment. Elodia or any of the other fast-growing plants would be just as good, but it's what I have, so I'm going to use that. And this is, like I said, this is a little bit more elaborate, I suppose. I could have just done this as square brackets, and it would have been just as good. I just prefer to do it this way. One thing I forgot, though, when I was doing the weld up for this, the problem with extruded acrylic tube, as I've told you so many times, it's not uniform in its texture on the outside. So there were little gaps, and you can see right at the top there, some of it ran. But fortunately, because of this bracket's going to go on here, it is going to cover up almost all of that, because it's going to go right here, and that's going to get welded in place. And you'll see here in a second all that will just disappear, which is, I said, kind of nice. If that hadn't happened, and I really cared about what this looked like, what I could do is just polish it, which is, it's not hard to do. It's just a matter of sanding it down and then using the paste I've shown you in earlier videos and just smooth it all out again. So watch as the methylene chloride wicks across here. There you go. As simple as that. It just redissolves the acrylic that's there and gets rid of all those marks, and it's very, very simple that way. Before I forget, I want to thank those of you who left comments on that video, and for that matter, for those of you who leave comments on every video. And I don't want you to feel bad if I don't get to a suggestion that you make. It's just me here. I don't really, even with all the extra time I have, I don't have the resources or space and tanks and all that sort of stuff to build everything that people would like me to build. My apologies for that, but in time, hopefully we'll get to as many of them as possible. So here you go. This is done. I like the one on the left a little bit more, but the one on the right is actually going to be quite useful as well. I don't really have a use for it at the moment, so I'm just going to show you it in the aquarium and then run a little bit of air through it just so you see what it looks like. But this one here I'm going to set up. I'm going to get it functioning, and I do need to make a few adjustments to it, I think, but mostly with how the air is going to go through it. As you'll see in a second here, I'm going to put the air in here. It is a little bit more turbulent than I want, and more turbulent than it needs. So it'd be interesting to use this as a bit of a refugium as well, because there isn't a lot of space in there. And there is actually a version of this I want to put together for those fish that just love to eat everything. And that way, if you have cichlids or goldfish or whatever, and you want to have the benefits of, you know, having plants in the aquarium and they won't eat them that way, it'd be something interesting, I think. So let me know below if you think that's something you'd like to see. And as you can see, there's a fair amount of turbulence here, but I'm going to let it run like this for the moment. And what I'm going to do is see how that goes for about a week or two. And if the hornwort doesn't care and it's still growing, I'll just leave it that way, because obviously the hornwort is going to see an awful lot of tank water this way. And as long as it doesn't start like shedding needles or dying back or whatever, I think it's going to be perfectly fine. Unfortunately, my elbow is going to get in the way here in a second on the focus, and the last little bit of this clip is going to be out of focus. But I am going to show you one more here in a second once I take the camera off the stand, and you'll get a little bit clearer view of this. So there you go. That's it. That's, like I said, a little bit more turbulent than I think I would like to run at, but that's very easy to fix. I can just put on an adjustable air stone and turn it down until I am happy with it. But for the moment, I'm going to just leave it like this. So I'm going to show you a better clip here in a second. There you go. And like I said, does exactly what I want it to. And you're going to see near the top, you're going to see the water that's going out of this. So it is having turnover. And it'll be interesting, like I said, to see how this goes. And as always, if you like this style of video, please like and or subscribe. Always leave comments, and I do try and get to as many as I can. And, well, actually, the other thing it is, I put a lid on this just because, obviously, there's going to be a lot of splashing. And that's just a simple piece of cut acrylic. So you can see the water going out the sides, and the water level is perfectly fine for this. And I think this one's going to be really nice. Now the other one here is much simpler, and there's the hole I didn't drill beforehand. This is just for the water to go. This one here is going to have much slower flow through it, and I'm going to show you a little bit here in a second. It is just meant to ensure that there's a bit of turnover, just so the roots do nicely, and obviously the fish aren't picking at them. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next video, and bye for now.